Hey, it's Miss Kelly Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. All right, so today's video is about why long-term rental landlords and short-term rental hosts are choosing to switch their properties over to midterm rentals, and some things you need to think about if you plan on switching your property over. So let's go ahead and get started with the long-term rental landlords. So there are three things that are appealing to long-term rental landlords. First of all, when you switch your property over to a midterm rental, you can make at least a 60% increase in your rental rate per month. Now, I know more money is always appealing to people. So yes, think about that. If you haven't already made the switch, that is what you could make, at least 60% increase. Another thing, or a benefit I should say, for long-term rental landlords is that they have flexibility. So normally they would sign a 1-year lease or maybe a 2-year lease, and that's it, right? But what if they don't get the right tenants in their properties? What if they have problem tenants and it takes a while to get them out of the property? Well, with midterm rentals, they don't have to worry so much about that because it's a shorter term lease. So even if there was a chance that the tenant was not the best tenant, they would be out of the property sooner versus later, and they don't have to wait a 1-year period or a 2-year period to get someone else that might be a better fit into that property. Another benefit for long-term rental landlords is that they are already pretty much used to the process of screening tenants and doing due diligence. So that process they've already done. The only thing they have not done or may not be used to is furnishing and setting up a property, and also indicating what the pricing should be for your midterm rental. But those are three things that would appeal to a long-term rental landlord. Now, let's switch over to short-term rental hosts. Now, some reasons why they would want to switch over to a midterm rental is because, for one, which is a major reason, is that short-term rentals are being banned, or they have heavy restrictions or requiring certain permits and things like that in different cities and communities. Maybe that has changed recently, or maybe it changed a while ago. But many of these hosts are facing a challenge because now these rules and regulations are affecting their business and it's affecting their money. So their options are either to shut down or change it over to a long-term rental, or try to fit within the restrictions of these regulations and rules, right? So that would be one way or one reason why they are switching to midterm rentals. Another one would be the property is already furnished and set up. So that's one thing out of the way. They just need to know how to manage a midterm rental and also understand what the pricing should be. Now, this is very important because I was actually on a call with one of my clients, and she was thinking that she should not go into a certain market because the properties weren't being booked when we were looking at the market research. But when I dived into it, I noticed that a lot of the properties that were not being booked are properties that were actually short-term rentals, that these people were trying to make them into midterm rentals, but their pricing wasn't right. So they weren't being booked because their pricing was too high. They were trying to price it as a regular short-term rental price versus a midterm rental price. So that's something that you would need to understand, right? Another reason why short-term rental hosts are switching over to midterm rentals is because of burnout. Some of them are just simply tired of going to the property multiple times a week or having to coordinate or manage cleaners and guests multiple times a week. So they're burned out. So they are choosing to do a slower paced business that still allows them to make a revenue that is pretty good, right? The last thing that would be a reason why short-term rental hosts are now going over to midterm rentals would be simply just the guests. The guests in vacation rentals are not all bad. Trust me, I have been a guest in a vacation rental plenty of times, and I have never done anything to damage anyone's property or belongings. But when you switch over to a midterm rental, of course, you get a better caliber of guests, and you don't have to worry about certain things and your things being damaged or your property being damaged. Those all would be appealing as far as why a short-term rental host would switch over to a midterm rental. So now that we've talked about the long-term rental landlords and the short-term rental hosts switching over to midterm rentals, what are some differences that you need to think about, or they have had to think about when making that switch? So one thing is, for a long-term rental landlord, as I stated before, they have to know how to furnish and set up the property correctly. They've never had to do that before, so that is something that would be different for them. Also, pricing, as I stated, you have to make sure you price your property correctly so that you will get booked, okay? So that would be very, very important. And then there's a little bit of difference in managing. So as far as a long-term rental landlord, you don't have to really touch the property that often just because you have someone in there for 1 year. The only reason why you would maybe need to go to a property or either talk about a property with your tenant is if something is actually wrong. And that doesn't happen that often, but sometimes it happens more than you would like, right? Well, with that, it's a little bit different because you will be touching the property a little bit more, maybe every 3 months or so, just to make sure everything is okay. You get new guests in. So that would be a difference for the long-term rental landlords. But again, you're making more money. So, hey. But on the flip side of that, for short-term rental hosts, you have less management because you don't have to deal with people coming in and out on a weekly basis. But the last thing that I would like to mention is really about the lease and doing your due diligence. Now, long-term rental landlords, if you manage your properties yourself, you are used to dealing with leases and doing your due diligence for the person who's staying in your property. But there is a certain type of lease you have to have and some certain terminology that needs to go into the lease that is different from long-term rentals. Now, on the other side, for you short-term rental hosts, you normally don't have to worry about any of this because you just get booked through platforms and these people just come into your property and that's it. Now, some of you might have agreements that you have the guests sign, but that would be about it. So it's a little bit different as far as how to create a lease, the correct lease to have, and what needs to go into that lease. So those are all things and reasons why long-term rental landlords and short-term rental hosts are switching over to midterm rentals. So if you are a person who's interested in switching over your long-term rental or your short-term rental into a midterm rental, but you don't know exactly what needs to happen for that to be successful, I have something for you. I do have a owner intensive program that is now available. So if you want to learn how to make sure you're doing the proper market research, how to get people in your property, like where do you find your guests, how to make sure you have your lease that is correct for what you're doing as a midterm rental, how to do your due diligence, all of those things. If you need help with just learning that and switch so that you can make this switch, so go ahead, click on the link below in the description and check out the Owner Intensive program. Now, enrollment is going to end on August 31st. So if you are interested in being in this program, make sure you sign up as soon as possible before enrollment closes. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video and received some value from this video. If you would like to continue to get more information about corporate rentals or midterm rentals, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And you can also follow me on social media. I am on Instagram and Facebook at Miss Kellie Michelle. So the same name you see above, put it together, you will find me. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Bye.